What happens when a guy decides he's too good for normal life, gets shipwrecked, and then crowns himself king of an empty island? You get Robinson Crusoe, the OG influencer with 0 followers. A man who made bad decisions before bad decisions were cool. Welcome to today's episode of John's Books. Think of this as your unofficial book club if book clubs actually involved laughing at people's life choices. Today we're unpacking Robinson Crusoe, a story filled with questionable decisions, accidental survival, and the invention of what I'm calling island chic. Now don't worry, this isn't your high school English class where someone drones on about themes of isolation. Oh no, we're here to roast Crusoe so thoroughly he'd wish he had better sunscreen on that island. Stick around because by the end you'll be questioning why this guy didn't just take up gardening instead of YOLOing his way into disaster. Alright, buckle up for a little history lesson, but don't worry, I hate boring lectures as much as the next person, so I'll try and keep this entertaining. Daniel Defoe published Robinson Crusoe way back in 1719. Back then, people didn't have Netflix or TikTok, so any book where someone didn't instantly die of food poisoning was basically a bestseller. And this one? Oh, this one was a bestseller. People ate it up. Probably because there wasn't much else to read outside of religious pamphlets and farming guides. Now to give you a quick rundown, Crusoe's the kind of guy who looks at a perfectly good life and thinks, this is fine, but I'm gonna risk it all for 0 reason. What could go wrong? And you guessed it, everything. Defoe probably thought he was writing a grand tale of human triumph and resistance, but honestly, he created a character who brings every disaster on himself and somehow still comes out on top. Talk about hitting the privileged jackpot. Oh, and fun fact, this is one of the first English novels ever written. Yep, Defoe in his infinite wisdom decided humanity's first major contribution to the novel genre should be about a guy failing upward. Inspirational, isn't it? And here's a thought, Defoe didn't even come up with this story from scratch. Turns out it's loosely based on some dude named Alexander Selkirk, a Scottish sailor who ended up getting stranded on a deserted island. Which just proves my theory. Reality always trumps imagination. But sure, Defoe, take someone else's misfortune, slap your protagonist on it, and call it a day. That's called classic writer behavior. Okay, here's where we get into the juicy details. And when I say juicy, I mean full-blown train wreck. Act 1. Ignore your parents. See what happens. Meet Robinson Crusoe. He's young, he's ambitious, and he has a bad case of, I know better than everyone else in my life. His dad warns him to stay home and lead a calm, middle-class life, but Crusoe's like, nah, boring, I'm built for adventure. Which, as we all know, he wasn't. He gets on a ship because apparently sitting still just doesn't vibe with him. And wouldn't you know it, a storm hits, everything goes to hell, and Crusoe realizes, shocker, maybe Dad had a point. But does that stop him from doing it again? No, it does not. This man is like the human version of the person who touches a stove after being told explicitly that it's hot. Act number 2, shipwrecked. Obviously. Eventually he lands on a remote island after, what a surprise, another ship goes down during a storm. Honestly, at some point, you think somebody would pull this guy aside and say, buddy, maybe maritime travel just isn't for you. But nope, here he is, stranded with nothing but wreckage, some basic supplies, and an ego the size of the ocean that just spat him out. And what does he do? Well, while most of us would be panicking, trying to signal for help, or, crying in a corner, Crusoe decides to build himself a mansion. Complete with goat farms and giant fences, he basically takes Survivor and turns it into his personal live-in Pinterest board. I mean, was there a single moment when this guy thought, maybe I should work on escape plans? Nope. This man was too busy recreating an episode of Fixer Upper, but with coconuts and existential dread. Act 3. When Friday shows up. Then comes the part where Crusoe meets Friday. Now, Friday is basically written like Crusoe's personal unpaid assistant who didn't sign up for any of this nonsense. Crusoe teaches him English because apparently it never occurs to him to learn Friday's language. Oh, classic Colonial energy. Arrive uninvited, take over, and assume that everyone is your employee. Friday quickly becomes the true MVP of this story. He deserves his own spin-off where he ditches Crusoe, builds his own raft, and lives his best life far away from this mess. But no, instead, he's stuck being Crusoe's companion/servant. Act 4. Plot convenience saves the day. Fast forward 28. Yes, 28 years of this nonsense. Crusoe is finally rescued. Not because of his genius survival skills, but because, wait for it, a random ship just happens to show up. This guy did nothing to make his own rescue happen. If that's not proof that life's unfair, I don't know what is. And then, boom, he's back in civilization. Yay! Roll credits. You know what really gets me? Crusoe doesn't come back humbled. Oh no. He comes back even more full of himself, as if he just ran a marathon instead of sitting on an island making pottery. Unreal. Segment 3. Sarcastic themes analysis. Now comes the fun part. Overanalyzing this mess of a narrative. Survival skills, or lack thereof. Crusoe's survival skills are a bizarre mix of dumb luck and Martha Stewart aesthetics. I mean, this man built furniture and herded goats before thinking of an actual rescue plan. It's almost impressive how backwards his priorities were. If influencer culture were a thing back then, this guy would have invented it. Colonial vibes. And then there's this whole king of the island thing. Crusoe shows up uninvited, declares himself in charge, and essentially treats Friday like his employee. If this isn't the most 1700s colonial energy, I don't know what is. Defoe, care to explain yourself to the class? Moral of the story. The takeaway here is clear. Ignore sound advice, refuse to take responsibility, and somehow life will still hand you a win. It's the kind of moral that makes you want to throw the book across the room or laugh or both. Alright, time for the roast session. Robinson Crusoe. Crusoe is basically that friend who insists they don't need Google Maps, gets lost, and says, I meant to do that. He's the king of doubling down on bad decisions. Friday. Friday is the hero we didn't deserve. I mean, this guy managed to deal with Crusoe's nonsense while also being incredibly resourceful, kind, and endlessly patient. Too patient, honestly. If it were me, I would have stolen the goats and left. The supporting cast. Oh wait, there is no supporting cast. Crusoe was so intolerable that even Defoe couldn't write somebody who would want to hang out with him. If Crusoe were alive today, he'd have a YouTube channel called something like Island Living with Robinson, Minimalist Edition. Imagine the merch. Handmade clay pots, goat fur blankets, and motivational quotes like, ignore your dad. Inspirational, right? On a serious note though, this story is peak escapism. Hate your job? Overwhelmed by bills? Why not fantasize about ditching it all on an island where your biggest responsibility is herding goats? Crusoe basically lived the dream, if the dream involves sunburn, solitude, and zero internet access. So what did we learn from today's roast of Robinson Crusoe? That stubbornness is cosmic energy's playground, and sometimes the universe actually rewards bad decisions. Crusoe may not be a hero, but he's a perfect reminder that the most chaotic people can stumble into success. Or as I've been known to tell my kids, even a blind squirrel finds a nut every now and then. If you enjoyed this sarcastic takedown, hit that subscribe button and share it with your friends, especially the ones who enjoy solo vacations. They'll relate to the story. And remember folks, when adventure calls, maybe just call it right back and say, no thanks. Stay safe, stay sarcastic, and I'll see you in the next one. Have a great one. Bye-bye.